podcast is a member of WildGamesProductions.com and D20Radio.com.
Between the time when wargamers played with chainmail and the rise of the Wizards of the Coast, there was an age of gamers. And unto this, Gygax, destined to bear the crown jewel of TSR upon a troubled brow, to show you all how to roll for initiative.
The Roll for Initiative podcast, volume number 2, issue number 90. We're about 10 episodes away from the big 100. I am DM Vince. I'm sitting alongside the DM Will.
Hey, what's up?
Biz Marquis. And coming back because he just couldn't stay away, and, well, we needed him in the show this week, DM Dwayne.
Hey, what's up, guys?
DM Matt is actually playtesting something for Gen Con, so he couldn't sit in with us today. And DM Nick is out with a family vacation, so we'll see him next week when he gets back. Anyway, let's get on with the show here, and we'll head right into some sage advice. Okay, sage advice this week. You can roll and send a letter. Go ahead. Write in rfistaff@gmail.com or 570-865-4210, the hotline. You have a couple emails this week. The first email comes in from Timmy, and he writes, "Hi guys, love the show. Want to hear your take on the spells that start with power word. What do you think the caster shouts out as the power word? Would it be the secondary name or just some draconic word due to the spell? Thanks, Timmy." I don't know. I never actually thought about that. I would think it was just a secondary word. When it, like power word stun or kill, just stun. What do you think? Well,
No, that's exactly what it is. I mean, it's a very simple spell. You decide which one it's going to be, and then it's stun or kill or what are the other ones again? I thought there were some other ones. I just can't recall right now the time and everything on the power words. But that's exactly what it is. It's just one word.
yeah, that's what I figured. It was just some people say it's a draconic word, but I think it's just the word itself. Stun. Whatever. Kill.
Well, I do not understand what they mean by draconic. What do they mean by that?
Well, you know how they say that all magic is a form of draconic language, a dragon language, an ancient language?
I don't know about all that and everything. This is what I think about spells. One, all spells are unique to a magic user. So if you run into 100 magic users, each of those magic users are going to write down the spell in a different mathematical formula. Or formula, whatever you want to say.
Formula, yeah.
You know, that's what I'm trying to say. So, is it some form? Why would it be draconic magic?
Draconic is the oldest form word. A lot of people associate draconic as the oldest written form of magic language. That's why.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, more power to them and everything. I don't look at it like that, really, to be honest with you. I never really went to great depth into that and everything. It never became an issue. I have an issue with that because, I mean, I don't see how the spells are then taught. It's just one of those things. That's why all magic users do spells in their own mathematical mind, however they do it. Mm-hmm. And, and that's why it's so hard to get. But when you read the description of the spell, the area effect is one creature. Yeah. So it's not like you have to know that person's name or whatever. As long as you can see it or see him or her or whatever it is you're casting it, they make the saving throw and it's done. It's a dead issue.
Yeah, pretty much. You had me laughing because you take 100 magic users. I was like, imagine today we surveyed 100 magic users. 50 out of the 100 magic users agreed with DM Will. We secretly replaced their coffee with Walmart brand coffee. It's just like I kind of laughed because I was thinking of that, but anyway. All right, thanks, Timmy. Email number deuce. That's not a good email. Hi, just found the show and I love it. My question to you is I decided to make up a character like Batman due to the movie just coming out. And I was wondering what you all thought he might be. What you all thought he might be class-wise and what his alignment would be. Keep it up. Harold the Kumar. I like that name. I don't know. Batman? I'm thinking Batman's going to be some type of, like, acrobat, thief acrobat.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is thief acrobat.
As far as alignment goes, I don't know. He'd definitely have to be chaotic. I don't know.
Chaotic good, I think.
I don't know, because he was all for this last movie was like all about I'm protecting the city and I don't care about myself, and I don't know. It's kind of... Will, what do you think about Batman's alignment?
Ooh, Lord have mercy. You can ask me a question like this. I was never one to equate alignment with non-fantasy and all that other stuff. I just never did that and everything. I mean, when I look at Batman, I mean, the guy is a warrior. He's a fighter. Yeah. That's what he is. He's out there fighting evil. I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying he could be a thief acrobat. I mean, he does a lot of the acrobatic stuff, but there's a lot of fighters that do the same thing too. I mean, Batman's heavily armored.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just goes along with. I think he's a fighter. Straight up, he's a fighter with all those special little skills and everything. I mean, take everything away from him who he is. I mean, if you saw the last Batman movie, he didn't use too many tricks out of his belt, his utility belt.
No.
So I look at him more as a fighter class. Alignment-wise...
Yeah, that's a tough one.
He's still lawful. He is still lawful. And I think he's more lawful neutral than anything else.
You think he's lawful neutral, huh?
Yeah, because now if you take a look at lawful neutral is a very, very nasty alignment. People say like, oh, it's lawful, so it's good. No, not necessarily. No. I think lawful evil is easier to play than lawful neutral. And I think he's lawful neutral. He still sticks to the laws and everything. He still does that, abide by that. But I don't know what you're basing on from the very early Batman when it was like the superheroes. What is it called? Justice League of America? Not what the Justice League of America. What was it called again?
Super Friends?
The Super Friends. There you go. But the Super Friends. And then you watch. This is when, I remember when comic books used to be 15 cents each. And then I see them now they're almost like $3.75, $4 now. So I've seen Batman go through that metamorphosis.
Well, you could say the Batman, the original Batman, probably was like more like lawful good.
Adam West?
The Adam West Batman definitely was lawful good, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's how you have to look at things like that. I mean, I don't know what Batman they're referring to, but I think he's more of a lawful neutral kind of guy. And like I said, lawful neutral, if you really look into it, and not just from first edition AD&D, but look at lawful neutral in some of the other D20 games, RPGs, and you'll see where I'm coming from on lawful neutral. Well,
I think he's basing it off the Christian Bale Batman character, because he said just due to the movie just coming out.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of tough, because he... In my opinion, he evolved in alignment throughout all three movies. Each movie, he kind of showed a different side to him, so...
Yeah.
He went from this, like, total guy that was out for revenge and everything to this guy that was just, I'm protecting the city, I'm a symbol for everybody to look up to. So it's kind of hard to pick his alignment out.
Well, my whole thing with the Batman movie is, Superman's not that far away. He could have called Superman to solve all those problems. That's all I think about it.
Well, that's next summer, right? I saw the preview for that. That's next summer. Anyway. All right, Harold the Kumar. You have to figure this one out on your own by just basing it off which Batman from which movie and which time period. I definitely would say if you're going to play the Dark Knight Batman, you're probably going to be looking at a more chaotic for himself Batman, so... Anyway, email number Trace. Guys, I'm having trouble with the charging rules. Can you explain it by the book? And is there any house rules for it? Also, can you explain it as if I was using the 3 attacks every 2 rounds option? Great podcast. I'm so happy you have a new show for my listening enjoyment every week. Frogger God. Cool, he plays Frogger. By the book? I don't really use the charging rules by the book. I know, Will, you do charging by the book exactly.
Oh, man, now you're going to ask me one of those rule questions and everything. I can't even recall the last time anyone's actually charged. I don't even hear that. To me, when I hear people say charge, it's like it's just a common word. I'm going to charge to the enemy, but they're not using the rules out of the book per the charge and everything is what I'm trying to say.
When I do charge, and Dwayne's been in my groups, I just kind of do the D20 version of the charge. I give them like a +1 to attack, and I minus off their AC for the second round.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, like I said, a big thing on charges, and in first edition AD&D, charges are determined. Successful charges determine on the movement rate. Are you charging outdoors? Are you charging indoors?
Right.
And you know what? There is no initiative check at the end of a charge.
Okay.
So and then there's going to be some. There's no dexterity bonus allowed when a creature charges, and creatures that have any type of their armor class becomes 1. The creature that's getting charged
becomes 1.
A creature that's getting charged by someone loses AC.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, and there's so many other things like if you got a creature charge, and then there's a chance that you could possibly set weapons for the opponent's charge and so on. Also, charging creatures get a +2 to hit when they get to their target.
Oh, okay, so I was doing that right then. Okay.
Right. And the creatures can only do that one action that round. They can only charge once per round. They can't go, I'm going to charge and go through all 10 goblins and hit them. No, that's not the way it works.
Will you allow players to back up 10 feet and then charge, or?
Yeah, that's kind of weird how they would do that. It is kind of weird and everything, yeah.
How about 3 attacks every 2 rounds? Do you allow them to charge and attack, or do you consider the charge on movement and attack together?
If they charge, and it's just like D20 and everything, and that's considered a full round action. In order to do a full round action, I'm just going to use Pathfinder because basically that's D20.
Yeah.
In order to do a full round action, they can only take 1 5-foot step in order to get their multiple attack per round. And the same thing would apply here with the charge. If they're charged, that is the only action they could take in the round. Now, of course, if you go to Unearthed Arcana and everything, and then go with the Cavalier charging, basically you got that abilities with the lance. I believe that's where the rules change a bit.
Yeah, the Cavalier is different. We're talking about general rules.
Yeah.
But if my fighter saying, I'm going to charge attack that goblin, would he charge and then he rolls attack the next round? Or would he just charge and rolls attack, and then next round he gets his 2 attacks?
Well, when it comes to the strike blows and everything, it all determines on the initiative. That's the whole thing about it, because we have to figure out simultaneous initiative. What if it's simultaneous? We have to look at weapon speed bonus and all that stuff, speed factor. And there's just so many things determined, on
let's say we get rid of all that crap except for the initiative.
Yeah, I would say that if a PC or even an enemy is charging, if they do have the 3 attacks every 2 rounds, I would say that would count as their 2 attacks. I wouldn't let them charge and then attack twice the next round, because I would figure that everything that they put into that charge probably took away from them being able to do those 2 attacks the next round. The thing is, I haven't had any of my PCs try to charge. They're usually running away. So
that's good. So it's a good sign your PCs are running away. Run away! Okay, cool. That was interesting. I agree with Dwayne. I would probably let them just do the 1 attack and that's it. But like Will said, you're putting everything into it, so.
Yeah, it just, like I said, depends on how simple you want to do it. I mean, is it really necessary to have, what difference on weapon speed and all that stuff and everything? Because, I mean, let's be realistic. If it takes longer to hit with a lance, I find that ridiculous anyway.
Yeah.
If the lance is 10 feet long, I would suspect that weapon's going to hit first. Especially if you're fighting a melee character. I think that's common sense. But again, if you play by the book and everything, sometimes common sense is thrown out of the door,
Cool. All right, if you have any sage advice, you can write us at rfistaff@gmail.com or 570-865-4210, the hotline. Okay, we'll head into our first segment of Night Table Manners. This week, we're going to be doing something just a little bit different than the normal AD&D rules. We're going to take a look at another game that came out during the same time D&D was born, called Dragonquest, and how TSR pretty much bought this company out and made their own version of the rules, and we're going to compare it versus D&D. We will also put a link in the show notes so you can download the original rules and the 3rd edition rules, which TSR made up after they bought out the company in the 80s. So, be right back.
Typical. Of all the evil creatures in the world, I'd like to find one with table manners.
What, are you kidding me? I spent years cultivating the worst table manners on the planet.
Table manners.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about how do we make a character in Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest came out a long time ago. What year was it again, Vince? Do you remember?
1980s, I believe, is when it came out.
Yeah, I'm trying to see when. Yeah, 1980. The first edition of it was 1980 and everything.
Simulations Publications, SPI.
Yep, that's it.
Was the first company to produce this.
Yeah, and actually, I find this a very interesting concept with this particular game because as I was reading it, because I remember Dragon Quest from back in the day, but I never really got into it because, of course, I was playing first edition AD&D. That's near and dear to my heart, so I wasn't going to another system. However, this game has a lot of commonalities with another, it's actually commonality with two other games that I played extensively back in those days, and that was Hornmaster and Chivalry and Sorcery, and I'm going to cover that stuff here in a little bit and everything, but there's a lot of commonalities, and what you're going to hear me say a lot is just like Horn or it's just like Chivalry and Sorcery. So character generation is pretty easy. With this game here, you need 10-sided die to determine everything.
Yeah.
10-sided die, everything is basically based on 10-sided dice. Now, for example, if they tell you that you need to roll a D5, well, simply you need to roll a 10-sider and divide by 2. I think that's very simple to understand that. So from there on, like I said, 10-siders are determined. So in order to determine, let's start with the character generation. How is it different from first edition D&D and how we determine these things? First off, they have some different statistics. In this case here, they're not really called statistics. They're called characteristics, if I understand correctly.
Yes.
So, the characteristics in this game is physical strength, and that's what they call it. It's not just strength, it's physical strength, and this is very important because throughout the book or throughout the rules, when they say PS, you're thinking like, PS, what is PS? PS refers to physical strength. So I'm going to say them all as they are. Physical strength, manual dexterity, agility, endurance, magic aptitude, willpower, fatigue, perception, and physical beauty. So, and then of course, if they say PB, physical beauty. If they say fatigue, it might be an F. I have no idea. I didn't see anything with an F in there. They usually spelled out fatigue. So that's what the characteristics are for a character in this game. And in this game, everything that you encounter, every character you roll up, every NPC you run into is going to have this. And that's something that's unlike first edition AD&D. If you look at the monster manual, you will not see any stat blocks. Let's call them stat blocks for the time being.
Right.
You don't see any stat blocks for monsters. So you have to leave it up to the DM to figure out, well, what kind of stat blocks will I give a monster in the monster manual one? But when I looked at the monsters in here, I believe everything had a stat, if I'm correct.
Everything is statted out for you for easy convenience, yeah.
Yes. Now, this is fun now. This is the best part about the game because this is where, characters are more flexible in this game than they are in first edition AD&D. And let me give you an example. How do you determine what kind of character scores you get for your characteristics? Well, you're going to take two 10-siders, you're going to roll those 10-siders, and then you're going to cross-index on the point generation table. Right. So you take two 10-siders, add them together, and let's say, for example, I roll a 10. Well, you're going to get 90 characteristic points. You're going to take those 90 characteristic points, and then you're going to put it into your characteristics, whether, physical strength, manual dexterity, agility, endurance, and so on and so on and so on. Now, there's a couple rules that is very strict here on how a character is done up like this. For example, now make sure you understand how this works. This is kind of weird now.
Yeah.
Okay. The minimum value that a player may assign to a primary characteristic is 5. So the lowest you can have is a 5, which pretty means that's the worst of the worst.
Yeah, that's pretty much bumbling, yeah.
Yep. And the highest that you can achieve is 25.
Right.
Now, how do we determine 25? Well, like I said, if you roll 2 dice and you rolled a 2 ones, that equals 2. You will get 81 characteristic points. If you roll 2 10-siders and get a 20, you're going to get 99 characteristic points. And how they balance this out is, if you get 99 characteristic points, the max score in any of your characteristics is a 19.
Right, you scroll your finger to the right, and it shows you right next to the number what your maximum value can be for each of the categories.
Now, with that said, that once you put that 19, let's say we put 19 in physical strength. This is going to be kind of like a fighter-like character.
Okay.
Okay, so you have 19. 19 from 99 leaves, what, 80? Yeah, 80.
Yeah, 80, yeah.
Okay, now let's say you want to put another 19. You will not be able to. Because the rule says a character may only have one characteristic equal to its maximum value if that value is greater than 20. And I take that back. If it's a 19, I'm sorry, he can do another 19, but that's the second part of the rule.
Oh, I was
so, for
gonna say,
example, see how that works now? If you put 20 into physical strength, you can only have one stat of 20. The next two can be 19 and 19, and goes on down from there on, if you understand how that works now, as you see.
Well, if I had like 99 points, I would probably max myself out as a fighter with a 25, wouldn't you?
Nope, you can't get a 25. No.
Oh, okay.
Because if you look at the chart, if you roll a 20 on two 10-siders, you look at that chart, it says maximum, it says 19. That is the max you can put in your characteristic is 19.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, see that? Now it gets better, though. If you roll 2 dice and get a 2, you get 81 characteristic points, but now you can have a maximum of 25. So what they're doing is they're pretty much...
they're restricting the people with more points.
With the more points in favor of the one with the least amount of points. However, it still balances out because the person with the 99 points will have, an extra 18 points to play with than a person that has 81 points. So it balances out pretty good. I'm actually impressed with this mechanism they have placed here on how to determine stats.
I kind of like the spot when they would talk about secondary stats.
Yes.
How they said the GM can make up ones that he needs in the game.
That is correct.
So how would they get the points for those? I didn't see that part.
Let's see here. If you're talking about the secondary characteristics, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I thought he made those up, though, and that was based on the percentages. Remember? You had to do percentages with those.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that's where the secondary ones come in. So, and it's pretty cool on how they figure out the value. Like, for example, let's talk about the fatigue is a direct function of endurance. And this is where people say, what is fatigue and endurance? They both sound the same, whether they're two different concepts and everything. Fatigue is the measure of the length of time that a character can sustain activities requiring a great deal of physical or mental exertion. For example, combat, casting spells. That's what I like about this game, because in this game here, if you cast spells, you're going to get tired very quickly.
Yeah.
Very a fatiguing event with casting spells. Now, endurance is how much punishment you can take.
That'd be your health, yeah.
That's your health and whatever the case may be. So, yeah, there's two differences of those, and I like that because in Hornmaster, Chivalry, and Sorcery, you have fatigue. So if you want to go around wearing the fatigue is awesome because not only does it apply in combat, but also like when you wear heavy armor or if you have a heavy load of stuff and everything. It's just amazing, and the rules do restrict players on how many weapons they can carry on their body. There's just so many new things in this game. It's unbelievable.
It reminds me a lot of, when looking at fatigue, it reminds me a lot of the D20 version of Star Wars where they had the vitality versus the wound points. Exactly. And Spycraft, how they did that as well.
Yes, that's what I like about that, and that's what's lacking in the D20 system. I mean, there's some optional rules for fatigue and all that stuff and everything, but there's already rules implemented in that system for people that have heavy loads or have heavy armor and all that other stuff. So I don't think that's why it's more or less of an optional rule. Okay. So basically what happens is we create the character, we assign all the points, and that is awesome. Now we're going to get into some of the elements that is not in first edition AD&D, and this is where a lot of weird things can happen. First off, let's start with the races. In first edition AD&D, unless the DM says otherwise, a player can be any race he wants to be.
Right, any gender, any race, yep.
Any gender, any race, he could be any age, he could do whatever he wants, pretty much, as long as the DM approves it. However, in Dragonquest, you can play a human automatically.
Yes, the human race is the most prevalent, yeah.
It's correct, and that's what they did in this game. They made them very prevalent, so they are the majority, while demi-humans are the minority. If you want to play a demi-human, you have to roll percentile dice.
Yeah.
And you roll under. And again, this is something that is used in Chivalry and Sorcery and Hornmaster. If you want to play the dwarves or the elves and everything, you have to roll on percentile dice. Now, in those games, you have to roll very high, like a 95 or better to be a dwarf, and 97 or better to be an elf. So it's much more easier being a dwarf than an elf because of the long ages in that game.
They also, one thing to point out, well, they really pushed the human race as the top race in here by saying, if you want to play an elf, a dwarf, or anything else, those races are going to be in their twilight years.
Yeah, I saw some interesting stuff on that and everything,
Yeah.
and I thought it was kind of weird how they put that in there. So I didn't like that too much. So I would adjudicate that differently, saying, "Well, I don't understand why they enforced that."
I think they're doing that to try to show this is a human-centric world, and humans are more important than anything else in the world. So they were trying to put emphasis on you're going to play a human, but if you want to play anything else, you got to play one of them in their older years or their twilight years.
Right. Now, something I found real weird with this, and I don't want to get anyone offended by this. This is really weird. I have no clue why they put this into the game.
But
I think it's a non-factor. I think this is something that shouldn't be, involved. But according to the rules here, each player can choose the sex of the character. However, if a character may only be hermaphroditic or asexual if the player receives special permission from the game master. That's weird.
they put that in the game?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I see it right here on page 8, yeah.
I thought that's very unusual. I thought that, wow. I mean, if back in the 80s, if I had saw this, I probably wouldn't pick this game because my mom and dad usually read everything I got. If they saw something like this, they would look at that what's going on here? What kind of game is this?
Yeah.
Did you do this? It's just kind of weird. I just can't see a asexual. What does that mean anyway?
Does it like anything?
No sex.
No sex, yeah, pretty much.
Doesn't identify with either sex.
Kind of like how Richard Simmons runs around saying he's asexual.
Well, you know what? I saw a Star Trek episode, Star Trek Generation, where Riker they were dealing with this race that they were asexual. They do not identify with each gender. So I can see where that comes in. That's unusual, but again, something weird. I think that's something that should be between that player and the DM. I don't know why that would be an issue. But see, other things that are very critical in this game, and I'm going to tell you why later on once we get to the combat. The player must determine whether his primary hand is left-handed or right-handed.
I think that's a good thing.
Well, in this game, it is very specific why that is.
But I do think it's a good thing. I make players do that a lot in D&D because I'm so sick of the people that's like, cut off, you get right hand cut off. Luckily, I have my left hand that I can just start chopping with. Not everybody can do that.
Right.
But go on.
So let's see, and again, let's go back to the races again.
Yeah.
If someone wants to be a dwarf, they have to take percentile dice. They have to roll under 25. If they want to be an elf, they have to roll under 30. Now, in this game, they have some interesting races you can play. Unlike first edition AD&D, you can't play an orc. In this game, in Dragonquest, you can play an orc, but you have to roll a 20 and below. Now, that's kind of odd that you're more likely to... well, let's go into the giant. You could be a giant. You need a 6% or below, and a shape changer at 4 and below.
Huh.
A halfling's at 15 and below. So if you want to play any of these different races and everything, and the GM says, okay, no problem, roll percentile dice, well, I'll roll a 99. You're human, bud. That's it, plain and simple, human. So that's the way it works with those.
I also noticed that they're gender biased too in this game a lot. Like for playing female characters, your strength is decreased by 2 automatically.
Yeah, I saw that too well in a lot of areas in here and everything. And again, you just have to say, this is the 80s. And this is very interesting that this topic is coming up concerning this game, because did you see that post that I did on the OSR forum? PCs, races PCs?
No, I didn't see it, nope.
Yeah, I posted that on there because they was talking about things on there, and it's very interesting what that author of that article, has, he did a historical analysis of D&D and how race was involved in everything and how humanocentric it is, and then it goes on actual, race. So it was actually pretty good. So it's the same thing here with this game too as well. So it's when you read it, you have to give it a double take. So did they really say that? Yeah, it's kind of funny and everything.
But it is cool. I'm looking at playing a giant. They do give you the option of different types of giants to play if you get to be a giant. Yeah,
it's very impressive. You have fire giant, frost giant, cloud giant, and stone giant. So, I mean, and in here, the giants are typically good-natured.
Yeah.
And everything. They don't make them out to be very dangerous. They said they're lusty types, prefer nothing better than to go through life brawling, drinking, and wenching. I'm just good Lord. So
yeah.
Again, see,
they kind of describe things a lot different than D&D does, I'll tell you that.
Right. So again, they talk about all these things, the halfling, the orc. They say the orcs are normally nomadic, which is kind of weird. And they say they're cruel, violent folk that live nothing better than to rape and pillage. And this goes on. They say that they're a cowardly lot. I mean, I said here's a typical orc with pig faces. These orcs do have pig faces.
There you go.
And then, of course, the unusual shape changer, which means it is a separate genetic strain of human with the ability to change into the form of a particular animal. And they only got 4 types: wolf, tiger, bear, and boar. So they're almost like a lycanthropy or a lycanthrope, however people want to pronounce it and everything. So, but yeah, he's a shape changer.
I think that the optional rule at the very end, the aspects, is kind of interesting, but I think a little bit too much for a GM to keep track of.
Well, see, and this is the good part and everything. This is. I wonder when they did Horn Master and Chivalry in the days, if one group or another really looked at stuff, and this was like some type of they use this in part of their games. But let me see here. Aspects. When a person is born, date and time, and you know, what month or what have you and everything. And depending on that and everything, the solar or lunar aspect and all that stuff, it affects your character in a positive, a negative way, or could be neutral depending on when they're born. It'll give them pluses or minuses. So I thought that was pretty interesting and everything. So, and then, of course, the heritage comes in. A lot of people like to get into that heritage stuff. Where do you come from? How large is your family? How many kids? Where was you in the order of birth? You know, stuff like that. Was you a bastard or were you legitimate? Was you the first child? And then depending if your dad or parents were merchants or craftsmen or bandits or lesser nobility, greater nobility, all that stuff comes in. And what that dictates is how much wealth you begin with at the very beginning of the game.
And then you finally round it off by rolling how much experience you start with and how much silver pieces silver pennies, I should say, you start with. That's
another thing that's different from AD&D is that they don't use the typical common denominations in here for wealth. Silver pennies, and I don't forget what all the other stuff was and everything, but it's all weird, different and everything. So, again, it's just funny. Yeah, starting off with experience points, you know, it's definitely unusual because I tell you, in first edition AD&D, you're starting off at 0 experience points, plain and simple.
Yeah, well, these experience points are actually used to acquire skills at rank 0 and raise them up. So, at initial stage, those points are for.
Exactly, but you know that basically is how you generate a character. That is basically how you generate a character, plain up. That is exactly. It okay. Sounds a little bit difficult, but that's how you do it. Very different than first edition AD&D. Honestly. Now, I mean, because I'm going to put the question to y'all too. I prefer first edition AD&D as far as rolling up characters. It will always be my favorite way of rolling up characters. So I do the 4d6. I drop 1 and then, you know, keep the high and then put them wherever you need to do. That's how I normally do it and everything. You know, social birth and the choosing any race you want and all that stuff. That's all the pluses for AD&D. Now, if you play a game like Horn Master and Chivalry and Sorcery, those games are human-centric. That means that humans are the majority, and they still are in first edition AD&D anyway, regardless. But Chivalry and Sorcery and Horn Master, it's very difficult to play a non-human character, and they pretty much stick to this. Now, one thing this game does have that those other ones do not have, we do not play giants, we do not play orcs, and we don't play shape changers in those games.
Okay, hold on. All right, cool. So, Wayne, what do you think about listening to this whole conversation about creating characters? What do you think about it? Your opinion about it?
Wow. Yeah, you roll for everything, which is neat. That is definitely a different system. Rolling for left, right hand, rolling for initial experience points. It seems to me, after playing Marvel a couple times now, that it's similar to Marvel in some respects, as far as being percentage based and experience more along the lines of karma, so you can use it to raise certain skills. It seems involved. I prefer first edition AD&D. I'm not saying I wouldn't give this a shot. It's just there's a lot to it. Especially, I've never played this game ever. So I've heard about it. This is. It
was actually a board game also, so maybe that's what you heard of that.
Yeah, I probably heard about the board game. Like I said, I started playing with Menser and first edition AD&D, so this really never came to me before. I never heard about it, but I mean, it seems interesting. It does. It's just there's a lot of neat stuff here, and it kind of making your whole character random probably would give more role playing opportunities, I think.
Some quick thoughts of history about it. Dragon Quest appeared actually in 4 editions. SPI made a first one and the second, and then there was a revised edition done by Bantam Books. Then TSR purchased them, and they published the 3rd edition book. As of 2006, Wizards of the Coast had the rights to the game, but Hasbro dropped the rights to the game. They let it expire because they had no interest in continuing it. So actually nobody holds the rights to this game. I guess technically Wizards of the Coast does, if they wanted to challenge it, but they've let it lapse over 4 or 5 years now, so there's nothing they could do probably about it. I guess with legal team they probably could, but they're not challenging anybody right now with this game. I kind of like the system. I wonder if Birthright was born based on this game. Because it kind of reminds me of playing Birthright in a sense.
Well, I love Birthright. I'm telling you, that was probably the second or third best campaign system that came out during the 2nd edition days, with Ravenloft and Planescape, Ravenloft and Dark Sun being my number 1 and 2. Birthright, I wouldn't be shocked if they used some of the elements from Dragon Quest, mostly concerning the social status and all that other stuff and everything.
Yeah. I know it just didn't really, I'm looking at something, so it didn't really sell all that well once TSR took it over. Surprise.
Which one? Birthright?
This. Dragon Quest.
Oh, we're talking about Dragon Quest?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 1st edition was in its heyday.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the powerhouse game. 1st edition was truly king in those days. From 78 to all the way through the 80s, 1st edition was king, especially the early 80s. I remember it. I mean, that was it. That was the game. That's what all the kids wanted to play. And now, of course, I'm just, generalizing when I say all, but let's just be realistic. That's all I heard. D&D, D&D this, D&D that.
Yeah, all the nerds, not all the jocks.
Hey, I was a jock back in those days. I was playing sports.
Oh, Will, please. You know you were all part of band camp, please.
I played music, too. I did a lot of that stuff. I was very versatile back in the day.
All right.
But I supplemented my weekends. Of course, we all did those weekends where we stayed over at a friend's house and played like 12, 13, 14, 15 marathons. But no, it's funny to see this. It really is funny to see this. It has a lot of potential. But again, if you played Chivalry and Sorcery and Hornmaster, let me just say that you would rather play that than this.
Yeah.
Only because the source material, the supplemental material for those 2 games is extensive.
Well, Dragon Quest may be dead as far as a publisher is concerned. It doesn't mean it's dead in the eyes of the fans.
It's not. There's a huge Dragon Quest following out there.
You can go to dragonquest.org, and there's a whole society, Dragon Quest Society, and they have their own. They actually have their own living campaign for the past, 10 years now. I was looking at the site, and they have over 200-something players and DMs. Unfortunately, they're based in, I think, New Zealand, so you can't go to the live events, but you could participate in the online events and maybe coordinate something with somebody over here. I don't think they would shun that, but yeah. And you can download the book for free. We'll put the link in there for you. I mean, there's nothing bad about that. Anyway, yeah, that's about all we can say about it. Let's head over to game mechanics.
You think I'm mad? Perhaps I am.
What are you, a wizard, a genius?
Darn. A perfectly good brain wasted.
Game mechanics. All right, game mechanics this week. We're actually going to take a look at the combat method in this game and how it reflects versus first edition rules. First of all, like Will said, you need a D10 to play this game. So normally with D10 games, it's going to be a percentile roll, which it is. Some minor differences between D&D and this game. Instead of using rounds, they use something called pulses. We use 6-second rounds. They use 5-second pulses. When they attack, it's a D100 versus the modified strike chance on a character. So you'd have to take that static number and roll under it or equal that number to hit them. Damage is always, no matter what, going to be a D10, no matter what you're doing, unless you get one of those special hit attacks, then you would do a little more damage. The higher you roll, the worse the attack. If you roll a 99, your weapon is considered broken. If you roll 100, it's just considered dropped. I think that should be the opposite, but whatever. Initiative is always predetermined on a character because you take the agility, you add the perception, and the rank of the weapon skill that you have. Yes, each weapon has a particular skill level that you have in using it, which goes up as you rise as a character. If they don't have a weapon ready, you would just use agility plus perception. You compare the two. The higher the two goes. If it's a tie, then you can just look to agility, or you can look to the GM to he decides who goes first. Now, armor in this game works a lot different. We were talking about a little bit about that before, how fatigue and endurance come into play. Armor, now, combat is going to take a long time based upon what I was reading here, because not only would you start attacking fatigue points, the armor you wear absorbs every bit of damage you take and reduces by 1. So every time, think of the Star Trek shield method. Every time you 10 points of damage, your armor would absorb 5 points of it, go down by 1. And the rest of it would hit the fatigue until your fatigue goes down, and then it would attack the endurance straight away. Or if the absorption armor goes all the way down to 0, you start hitting your fatigue all the way until that goes all the way down, and you start attacking your endurance. Now, you were saying something about a grievous attack before, Will?
Yes, that is basically like a critical hit.
Okay, so probably like a 1 or something.
And it's horrible because when that happens, there's a chart in there, and this is where you start losing members of the body. Fingers, legs, arms, hands. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. And if you get to 3, or what is it? Yes, if you fall to 3, you're unconscious. If you fall to 0, you're automatically dead. If in one shot you take 1/3 of how many hit points you have left, you considered stunned in one shot. And that's basically how combat works. There are some other things like infections, which I didn't really lead upon because I thought that was an optional rule, and Will's telling me it's not, so my bad.
What is that, on the infections?
Yeah, the infections.
Yeah, I didn't think it was like a special option. It says at the end of every combat in which a figure is wounded, or when a figure is wounded in a non-combat situation, there's a possibility that figure has become infected. Now, when they say that figure, okay, this game is done very different when it comes to combat, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a hex map laid out, not the typical square grid. It's going to be a hex map. If you all have ever played a game like Starfleet Battles or any of the old I'm sorry, I was going to say API games. What do you call them again?
Battletech.
Well, yeah, there goes Battletech. And I was thinking of the other one, but I just can't think what it is right now.
Palladium?
You have no, it's oh my goodness, it's at the tip of my tongue, but I'll think of it in a second. Anyway, what's going to happen is let me take a look here. The one hex is going to be where you're facing. The hex to your left, the hex to your right, which would be your 2 hex, and your 6 hex, that is going to be the 1, the 6, and the 2 is going to be your front flank, and then the 3 in the back behind are your rear flank. So this is very different, because in this game here, the GM is going to not draw it out, but he'll have the hex map, and he'll put down either miniatures, dice, pennies to represent the players. But in this case, it would be very important to have figures, so you know what facing is very important. Let me just put it that way.
This game is very, very mini dependent, I noticed.
Very tactical.
Yeah, and that's why the combat takes so long. Now, when you talked about the armor, I was confused on something there, Vince.
What?
Let's say, for example, someone's wearing leather armor, and someone hits them for 10 points, but the armor is only good for 6. 6 is going to be stopped, but the other 4 get through. Am I correct?
The other 4, they said, just absorbs. It just goes away.
Well, I thought the first 6 get absorbed.
I believe the rest of them go away.
Because this is almost the same thing used in Chivalry and Sorcery and Harnmaster, especially Harnmaster, because in Harnmaster, when you put on, let's say you put on chainmail armor, besides chainmail armor, you're going to have that protective armor that goes underneath the chainmail, so it prevents you from getting chaff, skin, or whatever like that. And then you could add other pieces of bits that can cover your elbows and your shoulders. But multiple layers of armor will absorb more and more damage. So I thought that was what the case was here with this one. Because, I mean, this doesn't go away. It has to go somewhere. I'm just trying to make sure that was what you said.
We're looking it over. It's kind of confusing, actually, now that I'm reading it again.
Yeah, it is kind of weird and everything because it just, like I said, while you're looking at it, like this is real weird because in Hornmaster, you have your moderate success, critical success, moderate failure, and then critical failure, depending on what you roll on the percentile dice when you're striking a creature.
Okay, I got it now. Basically, okay. I was confusing the 2 points. You're right. When you get the armor absorbs it, the rest of it goes to fatigue. Now, if your armor goes away...
you're done.
You start attacking the fatigue points. But this is where I was thinking. Instead, so say you have like 5 fatigue points, right? And you do 10 points of damage. You only take 5 fatigue points. The rest of it just goes away.
Okay.
It doesn't go into the endurance like we originally thought. No, I'm looking at it here. It just says it goes away. The rest of it is ignored entirely.
Okay.
And then the next round when you attack, it would hit the endurance directly.
But how does that affect the armor?
I messed it up, that's all I'm saying.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, you didn't mess it up. I was just making sure because this can be very confusing. So, if someone's wearing leather armor and it has a protection of 6...
we're right here. Ralph is wearing leather armor protection of 4.
4, okay.
You have 3 fatigue points remaining. An attack against you results in 9 points of damage total, which is weird because it's supposed to be all 10. Oh, no, yeah, I got it. 9 points total. The leather armor absorbs 4 of those, and then normally the remaining 5 would be subtracted from the fatigue, like you said.
Right.
But since he only has 3 fatigue points left, he loses 3 fatigue points, and the rest of the damage points are ignored entirely.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah.
But now the armor's value is going to go down now because it absorbed damage. Am I correct?
Yes.
I believe that's what it says. And now, yes, you are correct that damage is always determined by a 10. Again, this is another Hornmaster issue. In that game, weapons have a set amount of damage. A great sword does, I think, 13, 14 points. And a short sword does 6 points. A battle axe does 8, whatever the case may be. Now, in this game here, depending on what your strength is, that's where you get pluses. But then what happens is it also determines on the monster, the creature that's being attacked, his agility and the armor and all that. That's how the points of damage get modified.
Right. I was just looking here. Actually, the standard rules are the armor stays as its protection rating of 4. You can optionally make it go down by 1 if you want to.
Okay, that's what I thought I read.
Otherwise, it's just every time it's just 4, 4, and 4. But if once your fatigue points are gone, the next round it'll absorb 4. The other 5 will go right into endurance.
And that's where that's gonna stink then.
Yeah, that's when you really start to dying.
No, but they really got some good examples here and everything. And then, it just goes into the melee combat. Then it goes into the range combat. If you attack from the front, if you attack from the rear. I mean, there's so many options in here. So then we start saying, this is almost a D20 kind of like game.
I like how it's written because it has like these sections like 18.4, 19.2. And it's kind of like one of those faxes you see on a game thing. Like, what happens if I do this type deal and they write it out? They actually kind of break it down and cover almost every possible situation for you. So you're never left in the dust.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it does. And yeah, that's just too awesome.
I like it. I like it. It's a little confusing at first to read, but then once you get used to what they're doing, because every section is like section 17.6, each attack roll, blah, 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 and then it goes to 0.7, and it's really confusing, but then once you read it, it gets better.
Right, because it's going to tell you where to go. And see, this, you know where that comes from. I'm seeing this from Squad Leader, and I'm seeing this also from Starfleet Battles when it refers to, like, we're talking about plasma torpedoes. Well, go to G.14, and I believe that covers plasma torpedoes, if I remember correctly. Klingon use disruptor bolts. That's the letter D.
Yeah.
I think it's D4. So that's how I remember these things when I play Starfleet Battles. So this is like a Starfleet battle, kind of thing to me.
Yeah, it goes by the section number. Say damage is 19, and then everything under damage is 19.1, 19.2, 19.3. So it keeps everything organized for you to find it very easily. Kind of like a contract, almost, it looks like.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know if else you covered that on combat, on how like certain things can affect combat, like if you're prone, if you're standing still, and all that other stuff. There's so many variables in there and everything. So this is where the players have to come in and say, well, I have these many pluses because one, I'm standing tall, I'm on top of a hill, and all this other stuff. So I have an additional plus 30 to my roll or whatever the case may be. Or you need to roll low, am I correct? Or high?
Lower than a number.
Lower than the number, that's right. So you're trying to get a high number. But depending on the creature you're fighting, plus whatever it's doing, then the number gets adjudicated. It's almost similar to Call of Cthulhu.
Mm.
And Chill. Chill is another one. That's how combat is done as well, with percentile dice.
And the lower you roll, anything under 15% and lower is when you start using that table you were talking about.
That is correct. The grievous hits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that stuff's no joke.
Yeah, that actually, I was reading over that, and Grievous Hit will reduce the armor rating by 2 instead of just 1.
Mm-hmm.
So, you see that? That's what I'm saying. So the armor rating does go down. I knew that it does go down. Armor rating does go down. I can't stay the same.
Well, standardly, yeah, but you can have the option of move down, so...
Okay. Yeah, I would say that if this, I believe I remember from Hornmaster, if armor, let's say the leather armor absorbs 4, am I correct? If you do over 4 points of damage, well, then it reduces by 1. If, let's say, you did 3 points of damage, the armor is then not reduced by 1, and it still remains 4.
Right. Now, also, they have a lot of different actions you can do during combat. They have engaged figures and close combat figures. When you're engaged, you can you're allowed to melee attack, evade, withdraw, pass, prepare, or lose a spell, and then you can close and grapple. Close combat is when you only have 3 options. That's when you're really pretty much grapple combat. Grapple, withdraw, or pass. Pass being not doing anything at all except preparing for the next round. So those are some interesting options that you have there to play. Cool. Anything else we could say about combat that we missed?
I just really quick, just to clarify, I was reading over on the weapons chart. All damage is D10 plus the damage rating of the weapon, because each weapon has its own. It's at least a +1 to up a giant axe causes +10. So you have the possibility of causing 20 points of damage if you roll a D10 plus the damage rating on the weapons. And the weapons, you have to agility and your strength rating. All those affect which weapons you can use and how you use them and everything. It is involved, but like the other guys said, they give good examples in the rules of how, this is how we do it, and this is how you do it. So it seems complex, but it kind of lays it out for you on how to figure all this stuff out.
And that's just physical combat, and then there's magic combat's a totally different thing here. Like casting spells, like Will said, this is when the fatigue points really come into play, because you have general knowledge spells and you have special knowledge spells. When you cast a general knowledge spell, it would probably be considered a low-level spell. You would cost you 1 fatigue point to cast that. The special ones, which would be considered higher-level ones, 2 fatigue points to cast those out. So you have to be careful when you're casting your spells that you don't get too tired of the fact you can't do anything anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly the same thing, and also you lose fatigue as the combat fight goes longer and longer.
Yes.
You lose fatigue from that too as well.
Yep. I won't get too much into magic because that's going to take another 3 hours to explain that.
It's not Vancian.
No, not at all.
No.
It's
not
definitely
even
not Vancian.
If you want to learn more about it, just pick up the free PDF and look it over. Basically, it's going to be based off the fatigue points, and still the same amount of damage type deal, but you have to really read it. There's a lot to do with it.
Yeah, magic is I don't want to call it convoluted because it makes it sound like it's all confusing. I should stop using that word and everything. But yeah, magic is a very in-depth, it's a learning curve. That's the proper way of saying it, a learning curve.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Okay, so that's combat in a nutshell. And we'll head into the Creature Feature Theater now.
Creature Feature Theater.
All right, this week on the Creature Feature Theater, we're going to look over the Harpy and compare it to how it differs from the first edition Harpy. And I'll try to do the best I can on how monsters differ between the two systems. The first thing that you're going to see when you look at the monster descriptions is they have all the same, they're not called statistics. Well, what are they called again?
I think they're just
You mean characteristics?
Characteristics,
yeah. Yeah, it's called characteristics.
they have the same characteristics as the players. From physical strength to the personal beauty, which is one thing that that's more akin to comeliness. And there's a special little rule that I'm not going to get really too into. The personal beauty of a creature can affect how the characters deal with it when they enter in combat. If it's too beautiful, the PCs might not even want to enter combat with it. The biggest difference between the Harpy in first edition and the Harpy in this game is the fact that the Harpy here does not have the ability to charm, which is that blows my mind, because that has always been the Harpy's biggest weapon, it's been able to charm.
If you think about it, they actually do have it with the physical beauty thing.
Well, you know what? I guess you're right. They don't say it as the actual their special ability, but they do have a pretty high.
Right, with the physical beauty, they don't want to attack it. They're kind of just like, "Wow, she's hot."
She's hot, and she has claws.
Yeah.
They also have a very high natural armor of 7, so when you roll your damage, it's going to absorb 7 points of damage right off the bat. So you better roll good against these Harpies. There's more appearing on the more numbers appearing. You can have up to 24 Harpies.
Oh boy!
In battle. Yeah. Other than 2d6 in first edition, you can have, I think, up to let's see here. No, sorry. One number is 1 to 20. So you can have up to 20 of these Harpies. They have the same description. They're buzzard-like birds with upper bodies of women, long claws, pale, thin faces, tremendous amount of noise flying, and horrible smell. I don't remember the Harpy in first edition having. They just call them foul creatures. They don't say that they smell bad. I guess you could take that as them smelling bad if you want to look at it that way.
Bird smell.
Yeah. They say Harpies can speak, but they have limited magical abilities and no special skills or talents. However, they occasionally are prophetic, but they will only speak a prophecy if it is evil and they wish to torment the listener. So that, even though they don't give alignments in this game, it would seem that would be chaotic evil, just like the Harpy in first edition, just to torment their listener with their evil prophecies.
I think they just assume this game that the characters are good no matter what, and that everything else is just bad versus them. I think that's what they pretty much assume.
Let's see here. Also, they say in first edition the Harpies speak no other language but their own. In this game right here, it says that they can speak. I would assume just some common language. They say that also that unless cornered, Harpies do not fight man. I've always known Harpies in first edition to try to lure and attack everything they can, especially men. So I guess they're a little more meek in this game. Let's see. Long talons. I guess the damage would still probably be about the same. I think I could, given a little time, I could figure out how the damage relates between the two systems, but it seems they probably cause about the same amount of damage. I don't know. It's a different system. It definitely is. Now, as we were talking before we actually started recording, they do give you all the characteristics in each description. They don't do so in first edition, but if you wanted to do that, it's not that tough to extrapolate what you wanted to use in first edition. We were also talking about that this game would make it easier for you to run monsters as PCs if you wanted to, because they lay out everything for you. So if you wanted to have a party full of harpies and hippogriffs and griffins, and I just say that because those are the 3 things I see on this page, you could have all 3 of those frolicking about your world, damaging things and just kind of causing a ruckus.
Yeah, there's no question about anything. If you need, it's there. They really went all out on it.
Yeah. So that is, there's a lot. Without playing the game, it's kind of difficult for me to figure it out. But it just seems pretty straightforward. It tells you right here in their natural armor, feathers absorb 7 damage points, and they say that in all the descriptions. They say when natural armor, that is, like for the griffin, hide absorbs 6 damage points. So you know right off the bat when you're facing something what it's going to do. There is no, I got to figure this out, then this out. They explain it all to you. Makes it a lot easier to run, I think. I guess for the system.
Well, there's no question. Like for AD&D, a lot of people are like, well, what is a goblin's strength or dexterity?
Now, the later editions of D&D are really good about, they put that all out for you. Maybe the people who created those other editions that I haven't played, but I'm going to eventually. Maybe they looked at some of this stuff. Maybe they didn't look just at first edition or second edition or classic. They looked at, they looked at a game like this because TSR had the intellectual property rights to it, so they could have used a lot of this stuff, like you were saying earlier with Birthright. It's very possible that they used a lot of this stuff to kind of figure out how they designed the later editions. So,
well, let's see. This game came out in 1980. When did the 3rd version come out? Do you know, Vince?
It didn't. I'm looking at the wiki because that's what I was wondering. Okay. And it doesn't say exactly when it came out. It just says it was revised. Look at the front of the PDF. It might actually show you what year it came out.
Yeah, I don't have it up right now, but I do know.
1989.
All right, so 89 was when TSR re-put it at 3rd edition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so, even then, remember now, if you saw the Unearthed Arcana, they had social skills or that social chart in the Unearthed Arcana for Cavaliers, which also applied to Paladins as well and everything. But, yeah, I don't know if Birthright got anything in this. Remember now, Chivalry and Sorcery and Harmmaster were already out, and they're still out to this day. So I guarantee that they if Birthright did anything, they might have gotten more of their resource material from those 2 systems. Because they were very popular back in the 80s and 90s. That's for sure. I can tell you that right now. I played them to death. But just to understand, I just want to jump back to combat modifiers real quick,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to let you know what the initiative round is like, and because, like I said, this is why I prefer first edition AD&D. Remember now, when the DM DM is the GM actually for this game.
Yeah.
Or the DQM, the Dragonquest Master, but it starts off that the actions allowed of engaged figures. Engaged figures are those that are within melee. They can do a melee attack. They can evade, withdraw, pass, prepare, or loose a spell.
Right.
And when I see these things, this reminds me of D20 games. Now, if it is in close combat, you can grapple, withdraw, and pass.
Right, I went over all this, yeah.
Yeah, so the grapples, that's a very interesting concept of how they do grapple in this game. I like that. And then when you have the non-engaged figures, that's where you can do all the weird stuff like the prepare to loose a spell, fire, move into melee, move to evade, and so on and so on. It's really interesting. But then, like I said, then all the modifiers that involved depending on where you're at compared to the monster. Excellent game, well thought out. I guess it didn't really kick off too well.
I think this is one of those things that TSR saw it as a threat and said, we're buying it, much like they did with a lot of other games in the 80s when they were at their heyday. Put out their own version of the game and pretty much tanked it.
Yeah. It's a good game, though. I'm looking over it. It is, like Will said, it's a well-thought-out game. It seems very involved, but I think once you played it a couple times, you'd probably get the hang of it. But I think you're right, Vince. I think that's probably what TSR did.
Did they do that with Chivalry and Sorcery, or what was the name of that game?
Well, I will tell you that there was an issue with Chivalry. The creators of Chivalry and Sorcery had an issue with Gary Gygax back in the day.
Yeah.
I do know that because I don't know if they wanted to take the product to him. I don't know if it was that he was not interested in it. I would have to take a look at the chivalry and sorcery chart. I saw something somewhere that explained the whole issue between the creators of chivalry, sorcery, and Gary Gygax, and it's sad that it came down like that, because I mean, chivalry and sorcery, I mean, that's a hardcore game. I mean, unless you played it, you would know what I'm talking about. It's definitely hardcore. And chivalry and sorcery is not more or less as, I guess it's not really more fantasy, but it's more or less like what Gary Gygax had for his campaign, because it was more medieval than anything else.
Here
goes. It says here, they intended to present it to Gary Gygax at Gen Con in 1977, but changed their minds once the con where they met Scott Bizarre, who wrote out a letter of intent. And after some final changes to get rid of the last remnants of D&D, they renamed it to Chivalry and Sorcery shortly after the release of the first edition of Advanced AD&D. I remember that. Yep. And it's more focused on medieval chivalry than fantasy, and that was the difference between the two.
Right. Interesting. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I saw somewhere else with the whole why they didn't present it to him, because I think Gary had found out what the game was about and he kind of dismissed it or something. I don't know what the whole deal was, because Chivalry and Sorcery is all about realism. If you want to play a game about realism, that's the game to play, because that game is hardcore realism there.
You know, it's funny that the other version of D&D that could have been what they call the California or the Caltech D&D,
right.
Warlock. It's funny because when Gary playtested the original D&D when he went to Caltech University, he playtested it there. From there, when he left obviously rules behind for them to keep playing. They absorbed it and made their own version of the game, which could have been D&D as it is today. It also focuses more on realism, too.
Yeah, and I think that's what he was trying to stay from. He wanted to be, real easy and simple, nonchalant. But yeah, it's impressive how all this stuff comes back after all these years and everything. I actually, to be honest with you, I practically forgot about Dragonquest back in the day. Yeah, the thing on the monsters is pretty good on how they did the harpy and everything, and that's kind of, in a way, that's what I thought of as a harpy, because back when I read on Greek mythology and everything, I thought, not only were their feathers tough, but they might have scaly skin or something. Am I correct on that?
That's what I always thought too, yeah.
I thought they had some type, their skin was a lot more tougher than normal, so I could see why they had a high, AC or body defense of 7, whatever what you want to call them and everything. No, that's pretty good. That's good to go. It's not a bad game to get involved in. Like I said, it's something new. The PDF's out there, and there's a wonderful website. I'm just looking at their website.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's very impressive.
Now, I'm looking at the wiki. They explain it just like how you did, Will. Dragonquest combat falls in between the complexity of D&D and such systems as RuneQuest or Harn.
Oh, where does it say that at?
On the wiki for Dragonquest.
Oh, see, I didn't even look at that. See, when I saw how they did the combat and how they did that with the armor, the fatigue and all that, that's chivalry and sorcery and Harn Master in a heartbeat. Yep,
it also says it could take several hours to resolve battles, like you said.
Oh, well, I mean, just looking at it and how... when I saw the combat and I saw that they have to have the hex sheet, right there I knew there was going to be an issue. Because I said, this has to do with a lot with facing. Facing is very important in this game.
Yeah. I mean, it's very mini-dependent, which I don't really like, but...
Now, you don't have to use miniatures, but in this case, you might want to use miniatures because facing is very important. And again, just goes to show people that the historical nature of this game was minis.
Yep.
It basically was. And that shows it right there. Now, take a look at that Grievous chart, though. Did you see the Grievous chart?
Yeah, the D100 Grievous chart was amazing.
I mean, that's crazy, and unfortunately, I only see that one chart from 1 to 100. I wish they had something extensive as like the Middle-earth role-playing game where they have all those things. But like if you get a crit with a spell, or if you get a crit with a particular weapon, but like this one here says, a savage / rips open your cheek and jaw. Next pulse, you are stunned. Your physical beauty is increased by 1 because your wound brings out the maternal-paternal instincts in the opposite gender. I don't even know what that means.
Take the charts from Chartmaster and use those.
Yeah, you could use those too as well. It's just interesting how they designed this. Oh, I see what's going on. It says Class A weapons do grievous injury on rolls of 1 through 20. Class B does 21 through 80, and Class C does rolls of 70 through 100.
interesting all around.
Excellent. I think that's pretty good here with the Grievous Wounds.
Well, tell us what you think out there. If you played Dragon Quest any form between the SPI to the Bantam books to the TSR version, write in and tell us your opinion of the game, how your game sessions went, and if you still play it to this day. If you're interested, go to dragonquest.org, and you can see the Players Association and all the information to play about it. The link to download the PDFs we'll put in the notes. It's just too long to say, so...
Don't forget, go to Dragon Quest Frontiers. That's one word, dragonquestfrontiers.com. That beautiful site.
Oh, dragonfrontiers.com? I didn't see that site. Okay.
Yeah, it covers a lot because it covers the colleges of magic. It goes through the whole tangent, how combat is done. It covers the Grievous chart, the fight table, the backfire table, profession, advancement, combat, character creation, combat modifiers, experience charts, advancement. It covers it, the whole gambit.
Okay, cool.
Yep, dragonquestfrontiers.com.
.com. There you go. Well, that's going to wrap up the show this week, and we'll be back next week. I think, next week's going to fall into, yes. No, Will not be here next week.
No, unfortunately, I will not be here next week. I'm going to Dragonflight, to a gaming convention all 3 days, and I am done.
And then Gen Con. Not you, but Gen Con comes up.
Yeah, we got Ren Fair 3 weekends in August after Dragonflight, and then I got PAX Prime at the end of August.
Yeah, unfortunately, by the time this comes out, I think Gen Con will be out because we're like 2 shows behind as far as putting them out. We have like another one waiting to go out after Matt just put up the special insert number 9 today. Surprise. Remember we talked about surprise rules, Will?
Oh, wow, yes, surprise. Yes, surprise.
Surprise. Yeah, that one just went up, and then the one after that would be issue number 89. That will be going up next week, and then this one will probably be going up right when Gen Con's coming out. So,
which one talked about the pig faces?
That would be the... I think that's the issue before. 89.
Yeah, it's 89.
Oh, so that was already posted then, right?
No, 89 has not been posted yet.
Oh, I can't wait. That guy's probably waiting. Said, I wonder if they answered my question about orcs having pig faces.
God, pig faces. You keep saying that over and over. People are like, what are you talking about? Now they know.
Yeah, now they know. We're talking about pig faces.
All right. So I'm going to put a wrap to this show and say keep it original, keep it old school, and good night, everybody.
Good night.
See y'all later.
Roll for initiative.